Cool it!
Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days.
Remember when TV shows had moral lessons? Theme songs you could hum in your sleep, and characters who made you want to buy a leather jacket, even if you couldn't ride a bike? Yeah, those were happy days. See what I did there? It started as a one-off episode buried inside an anthology series, and somehow became one of the most iconic sitcoms of the 70s and 80s. But behind the jukeboxes, the sock hops, and the endless A's, there was a whole lot you probably didn't know. From draft deferments and disappearing siblings to time travel and talking dogs. Today we're counting down 15 weird, wild, and totally true facts about Happy Days, the show that made Milwaukee cool and turned a quiet sitcom into a pop culture 50s time capsule. So, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and let's jump 15. Almost no right in. Number 15, Ron Howard almost said no. By the time Happy Days came knocking, Ron Howard had already done the whole wholesome TV son thing. He was Opie, America's favorite, O'Shook's kid next door. What it is, Paul, is that nowadays kids get 75-cent a week allowance instead of 25 cents. America loved him, but Ron was ready to move on. He'd been accepted to USC Film School and was making short films on weekends. He'd already mastered the all-shucks routine on camera. Now, he wanted to call the shots behind it. So when Gary Marshall offered him the role of Richie Cunningham, Howard basically said, no thanks. He wasn't exactly itching to get locked into another sitcom, but then real life stepped in with a plot twist, the draft. His number was low enough to make things complicated. Enter the ultimate TV loophole, a work deferment. Back then, if your job supported at least 30 people, you could apply to skip the draft, a network sitcom. Well, that definitely qualified. So Ron agreed to do the pilot, which aired in 1972 as a segment called Love and the Happy Days on the anthology series Love American Style. Today's a big day. We're going to be the first family on the block to get a television set. My sister has to tell everybody, but I only told my best friend Potsy. Open the door. Hey Potsy, my mom didn't like you climbing through there. By the time Happy Days officially premiered in 1974, the draft was off the table, and so was film school. Howard stuck around, and Gary Marshall kept his promise. He gave Ron behind-the-scenes access and helped him build a directing career while the cameras were still rolling. That second career worked out pretty well because Ron Howard went on to direct Splash, Cocoon, Parenthood, Backdraft, Apollo 13, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Frost Nixon, and even Solo, A Star Wars Story. And in 2001, he won 2 Academy Awards for A Beautiful Mind, Best Director, and Best Picture. From Milkshakes to Best Director, that's one hell of a career arc. Number 14. Fonzie 14. Main character wasn't supposed to be the main character. Originally, the character was called Arthur Masciarelli, MASH for short, which was a nod to creator Gary Marshall's family name, but ABC thought it sounded too close to MASH, which was already a big hit on another network, so they pushed for something catchier. The name Fonzie was a last-minute change that ended up becoming TV legend. And the character, he was never meant to be the star. Fonz started out as a background player, a cool guy in a leather jacket who gave Richie Cunningham a little edge. He was Milwaukee's answer to a pet tiger. Cool to show off, but kept on a leash. But then something changed. We all saw Henry Winkler snap his fingers and say, hey, and the entire country fell in love. Fan mail started pouring in and ratings spiked every time he was on screen. Fans, we like sticks a lot. You know that. It's the kids down at Arnold. They don't understand. They think there's only 2 different kinds of people, white and colored. There are 2 kinds of people, cool and nerds. And the people down at Arnold's are nerds. Producers realized they weren't just looking at a scene stealer. They were looking at the future of the show. So they made the shift. Little by little, the focus moved from Richie's coming-of-age stories to Fonzie's adventures. And at one point, ABC got so bold they seriously considered renaming the show Fonzie's Happy Days, or just plain Fonzie. Gary Marshall and Ron Howard said, nope, and we're ready to walk. That idea got shut down real fast, but by then the message was clear. This wasn't Richie Cunningham's show anymore. It was Fonz's world, and everyone else was just hanging out in it. Number 13. Fonzie's 13. Leather Jacket was a constant battle with censors. Here's something that'll make you appreciate how much TV has changed. ABC's Standards and Practices Department originally wouldn't let Fonzie wear his leather jacket because they thought it made him look like a juvenile delinquent. That's why he appeared in a windbreaker in earlier seasons. Hi, FJI. To 1970s network censors, a leather jacket practically screamed motorcycle gang, switchblade fight, and the downfall of American youth. Which to me is hilarious considering Fonzie was the guy who fixed jukeboxes, taught life lessons, and helped kids learn all about the letter. Applause. The compromise. Fonzie could only wear his leather jacket if he was on or very close to his motorcycle, because that way it was practical. For safety reasons. Hey, this is a very nice place you got here. This led to some of the most creative set design in sitcom history. Need Fonzie to wear his jacket? Well, you better park that motorcycle somewhere. At Arnold's, there's a bike just outside the window. At school, Fonzie's bike just randomly is chilling in the hallway. And family dinner at the Cunninghams. Yep, there's a Harley in the living room. Okay, I made some of these up, but you get the point. Eventually, Fonzie's popularity made the whole argument pointless. The censors gave up, the jacket stayed on, and the country somehow survived the cultural threat of a nice guy in cowhide. Number 12, Chuck 12. Vanished son Cunningham vanished so completely, he became a TV trope. See, I'm changing my free throw from an underhand to an overhand. Looks better for the fans. Let's talk about one of television's greatest unsolved mysteries. Whatever happened to Chuck Cunningham, Richie's older brother, who showed up for 2 seasons, then vanished more completely than a witness in a Mom movie? Chuck didn't just leave. He was erased. No farewell episode. No, he joined the army. No, he moved away to college. One day he was there, and the next poof, the Cunninghams suddenly only had 2 kids. And it was like Chuck had never existed at all. What can I say? Both of our children are married now, and they're starting out to build lives of their own. Both children. Poor Chuck. He was originally played by Gavin O'Harley, who left after season 1, later saying he didn't want to play a character who would grunt and bounce a basketball once every couple of weeks. I mean, that's fair. Randolph Roberts took over in season 2, but the character still never clicked with audiences. Meanwhile, Fonzie's cool charm was stealing the spotlight, and the writers realized they didn't need 2 Cunningham sons, so they made a decision and never looked back. Chuck's disappearance was so iconic, it gave birth to a whole TV trope, Chuck Cunningham syndrome, used whenever a character disappears from a show without explanation, and the series pretends they never existed. It was such a popular move, we've got a whole video playlist about vanishing characters. The link is in the description if you're brave enough to go down that rabbit hole. More than 50 years later, Chuck is still the gold standard for TV disappearing acts. He's the godfather of Gone, if you will. A reminder that sometimes the most lasting impact a character can have is in how completely forgotten they are. Number 11, Henry 11. Motorcycle terror Winkler was terrified of motorcycles. Here's something that would have totally shattered the Fonzie mystique if we'd known about it back then. Henry Winkler, the guy who made leather jackets and motorcycles look like the ultimate combination, was terrified of motorcycles. Not like, yeah, I don't love them terrified. We're talking fool cold sweat. Nope, not happening kind of fear. All right, maybe I exaggerated that last part a little, but you have to get the point. Which is kind of hilarious when you think about it, though, because Fonzie without a motorcycle is like Batman without the Batmobile. Applause. Music, the crew had to get really creative. Most of those riding scenes, that's either a stuntman or the bike being pulled by a truck while Winkler sat on it pretending to cruise. In those close-ups, the bike wasn't even moving, just a stationary shot with the background rolling behind him. Winkler has joked that he could never figure out the clutch, and he wasn't willing to crash for the sake of method acting, which is fair enough. So, next time you see Fonzie revving the engine and cruising like the king of cool, just know behind the scenes there was a guy hoping the thing didn't tip over. Kind of makes you respect the performance even more, right? Number 10, Happy Days 10. Ratings almost got canceled until Fonzie and a live audience saved it. It's wild to think about now, but Happy Days was this close to getting canceled after season 2. The ratings were low, the vibe was off, and the show wasn't clicking. ABC was ready to pull the plug. And honestly, the early seasons felt kind of flat. Thought you'd never get here. What's up? I got the message. Not now. Later. Right now. Ralph Mal's going to show us this hickey. Come on. Where'd you get it? It was shot single camera style with canned laughter, no live audience, and barely any energy. The timing felt stiff and the comedy didn't land. It was like watching a nostalgia piece that hadn't figured out what it wanted to be. Then came season 3, and two things saved the show. First, they brought in a live studio audience. That one change transformed everything. Suddenly, the actors had real people to play to. The jokes hit harder, and the energy was contagious. Music applause, oh Lord. And secondly, they leaned into the breakout star Fonzie. Henry Winkler absolutely lit up with an audience. The Fonzie we all remember, the guy who could walk in Arnold's, raise an eyebrow, and steal the scene. That didn't really come alive until he had a crowd reacting to him. Now listen, this is your big chance. Nobody knows you up there at all cost. Do not be yourself. Oh, we're not fine. That applause when he snapped his fingers and girls appeared. Well, that wasn't sound editing. That was real, and it gave the show the spark it had been missing. Between the live audience and Fonz's rising popularity, Happy Days went from almost can-led to one of the biggest shows on TV, moving up to #1 in the Nielsen ratings for the 1976-77 season. It also ran for 9 more seasons. Not bad for a show that almost didn't survive its first 2 seasons at all. Number 9, Tom Hanks' Guest 9. Tom Hanks starred as a karate chopping rival. You ever watch something years later and go, wait, is that Tom Hanks? Well, if you ever caught the 1982 Happy Days episode, A Little Case of Revenge, you probably had that exact reaction. Before he was Forrest Gump or winning Oscars left and right, Tom Hanks popped up on Happy Days as Dwayne Twitchell, a karate black belt out for revenge. His beef? Well, Fonzie supposedly pushed him off a swing when they were kids. So, naturally fully grown and very dramatic, Dwayne showed up in Milwaukee looking for revenge. Because nothing says reasonable adult behavior like holding a childhood grudge and resolving it with martial arts. Fonzie, in true Fonzie fashion, refuses to fight. He handles it with compassion, grace, and just enough cool to walk away looking like the real winner. You know what you did? You stood up to the FL. I like that. You got guts. I do. Yeah, you never got killed, but you got guts. And here's the kicker. This weird little role actually helped launch Hank's career. Ron Howard remembered him later when casting Splash for Disney. And boom, Tom Hanks was officially on his way to becoming a national treasure. So yeah, Fonzie may have defeated a karate master with kindness, but Happy Days helped give the world Tom Hanks. So we'll call that a win. Number 8, The 8. Jumping the Shark Show literally invented jumping the shark. Now, I know you've heard the phrase jumping the shark, right? Yeah, Happy Days was the OG show for that. It came from a season 5 episode where Fonzie water skis over a shark in swim trunks in California, because why not? He's ready to make the jump. The episode, called Hollywood Part 3, was meant to be a big finale to a multi-part storyline. Instead, it became famous for all the wrong reasons. Applause. Music. The phrase jumping the shark was coined years later by writer John Heen and his college roommate to describe when a show hits the panic button and tries to keep us watching with pure nonsense. What's wild is that Happy Days went on for 6 more seasons, and a bunch of those episodes were still hits. So even if it jumped the shark, the show kept swimming. At this point, the shark jumping moment has become more famous for what it represents than for what it actually was. It's like visiting a pop culture landmark. Not because it's impressive, but because you've heard about it your whole life. Quick poll time. Who do you think was the coolest character on Happy Days? The FS with his supernatural hair and leather jacket, Richie with his earnest charm, or maybe Potsy with his, well, his enthusiasm? Drop your pick in the comments section below. And hey, if you're loving these nostalgic deep dives into classic TV, smash that like button and subscribe. We've got weird facts and forgotten stories dropping every week, because apparently this is what we do with our lives now. Now let's head back to 7. Spinoff, kinda, Milwaukee with number 7. Happy Days was actually a spin-off, kind of. So, remember that little plot from Love American Style we mentioned earlier? Well, the plot centered on the Cunninghams getting their first TV set, an event so monumental in 1950 suburbia that it instantly turned Richie into the most popular kid on the block. He even tried using it to impress a girl named Arlene. Spoiler alert, Richie's TV stunt didn't quite win Arlene over. Annette Williams was in the pilot as Potsy. Marion Ross was there as Mrs. Cunningham, but there were no leather jackets, no motorcycle engines, and definitely no A. Oh, and Richie's dad, that wasn't Tom Bosley. It was Harold Gould, who later became better known as Rose's sweet, talking boyfriend Miles on The Golden Girls. And Joni, she was played by Susan Nair before Erin Moran made the role iconic. Oh, great. The only Vin I win is the prettiest father. Listen, Dad, I can take her. The pilot was cute, but it didn't move the needle until a little movie called American Graffiti came along and made the 50s cool again. Suddenly, ABC execs were digging through their vault like, wait, don't we have something like this? All they needed was a side character with just enough swagger to balance out all the sweetness. And in 1974, Happy Days roared to life. TV historians still debate whether it counts as a true spin-off since the final show was so different. But evolution is baked into television, and in this case, it turned a one-off nostalgia piece into something iconic.